right.
Hey.
What's going on? How you doing?
Thanks, man. I'm good.
Appreciate you coming off
Appreciate
here.
you having me, man.
Welcome to D-Town. Well, hey, thank you for coming out and for breaking bread with me. So, a couple things I wanted to show you. First off,
Okay.
breaking bread. So I got some pita here and I got some hummus.
Okay.
And I know that you like to travel.
Yeah.
Right? All right. So I got back from Thailand, and so I thought it'd be fun if I put you on the spot and you can basically guess what the Thai treat is.
I don't know about that, man. I don't know about that. And I don't eat hummus. I'm like,
You
what
don't
is
eat-
No.
you don't eat hummus?
No, sir. No, sir. I eat the pita, though. No.
You don't eat.
No.
Why not?
I
Hummus is
don't-
like the best thing ever.
No. I love the mango and I love these. But I'm
try
like,
that.
what is
Okay.
this? This looks
Okay,
like
try
some
it.
caterpillar. You ain't getting me caught up. What is it?
You gotta tell me. You gotta taste
No,
it.
you ain't, man.
They're
No.
fried. Well, that's
This looks like a caterpillar.
that is not a caterpillar.
What is this?
That's
This is an
not-
insect. Y'all ain't getting me caught up on no eating the insects. They ain't doing it. No,
You gotta
no.
try
They
this
ain't
one.
doing
You
it.
gotta
I ain't
try
doing it. I'll do the mango. I ain't, no. No,
That's
sir.
what-
What is it? See, look at his look.
I've already had
He like, Y'all ain't getting me caught up on the FitMenCook show.
it. Well, cheers to you. I know that you don't drink, but this is a ginger and lemon shot. There we go.
Here we go. All right.
Man, thank you just for coming by. I've been following you for quite some time.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. You have one of like the best Instagrams in terms of like you post really great quotes and little nuggets like all the time. So that's how I found that about you. I think somebody was sharing something of another share, and I was like, let me just go back and follow.
His brother is.
Yeah. And I remember you because a long time ago, my pastor, T.D. Jakes,
Yeah, of course.
he was doing this movie, and he was like, y'all gotta meet this brother. He's like the youngest exec over there in Sony. And I was like, okay, we're out there doing things. So I've been like slightly, stalking like a stand for quite some time, man. So
Man,
just
it's an honor.
congrats on
It's an
everything
honor.
that you're doing.
Thank you. I've been following you from afar, so it's a blessing.
Oh man, appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you so
definitely.
much. So I want to talk a little bit about your book, but just like in general. Every time I turn on the news or just go into social media, they're talking about masculinity, like
Okay.
a lot more. It's like a trending topic here.
Sure.
Than that, plus like the Me Too movement. What do you think about all of this? Like, why is that focus right now on masculinity?
Because I think for too long, we as men have not been doing our work. We've been banking on the idea that our successes would cover our excesses. And I think as a result, we're living in the culture is finally saying, we're not taking it any longer. As men, we got to step up, we got to do our work. And, for so long, there's been this pattern of abuse of power and using our gender as an excuse to kind of do what we want. And I think that's why the culture is finally like, no, this has got to stop. We have to change. So I think that's why it's happening, because it's been kept under the rug for so long.
Yeah.
Now everyone's just like, we're not going to be silent anymore.
Yeah. What does that mean for us as a society?
It means that we have to, as men, start looking in the mirror. As men, we got to say, okay, well, what kind of man do I want to be? And what kind of man have I been? And what are the changes I may need to make?
Yeah.
And I think that it truly starts and stops with us.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I think, we as men can be resistant to doing our work. And so we sometimes see all these things in the headlines and we want to feel like it's, this witch hunt for men. And I don't think that's what's happening at all.
Yeah.
If anything, I think, the culture is on a hunt for truth and really get to a place where, the abuse stops.
Yeah.
And I think that's why all this is kicking up.
It does make a lot of sense, but I do hear that argument too that like perhaps we are on this witch hunt out there for men. The Gillette, they got into a whole lot of hot water recently because their ad came out, and it was about the same thing you're talking about, really men looking into the mirror and really confronting some of those truths about the gender, about the way that we've been like normalized, I guess. So,
but they also got a lot of praise too.
Yeah.
I mean, they got a lot of praise, and I thought like, when I saw that ad, I said, right on.
Yeah.
That's what we got to do. We got to change this, and it starts with changing the way that we're teaching manhood.
Yeah.
And I thought it was brave, it was bold, it was courageous, and when I saw it, I loved it. I was like, this is right. It's a step that's going to challenge people.
Yeah.
And change is challenging, and I was very supportive of it and spoke out for it and said, hey, we need more of this.
This is what we need.
Yeah,
A lot more of it. It kind of reminded me of this quote that you used in the book. The fight is raging in many men. The fight is happening in part because there's an inherent conflict between who men really are and who men have been conditioned to be.
That's right.
So
Exactly.
who have we been like conditioned to be then? What are you saying?
Very much the images that Gillette was challenging.
Yeah.
That's what we've been conditioned to be. You know, we're all, as men, we're supposed to be strong, confident, have all the answers, be the breadwinners, make the money, love sports, dominate everything,
Yeah.
and have as many women as we can have as much sex as we can have, get as much money as we can, get as much power as we can. That's how we've been conditioned as men.
Okay.
And I'm saying, all of us, I believe, know when we do those things, there's something in us that's like, man, I'm doing it, but is this really right?
You're missing something, or okay.
Absolutely. So that's what I talk about in the book. You know, I think there's
Yeah.
a war between how we're being conditioned and who we really are.
I've never been able to be this open with people, especially in like wifey like relationship. So were you always just this open guy? Can you think back? Can you do like a throwback Thursday and think back to pre-author Devon Franklin?
I think it's something I've learned over time. You
Yeah.
know, that you know, I wouldn't say that I've always been this open. I think as a teenager, as a kid, you know, trying to figure things out. Even as a young adult, you know, it's more kind of closed off. But as I think as the more successful I've become and the more I've kind of come into my own manhood maturity, I realize like, yo, you know, the path is just honesty, because what happens in the opposite is that we end up presenting an image and a persona, and the persona is deadly because it's not completely true, and it becomes very hard to sustain over time. And I think that's what I even, you know, when I say persona, I don't even mean necessarily in the public eye per se. People can have personas just showing up at work.
Right.
You know, a certain person that we want people to perceive that we are, but at home we're something totally different.
Ooh,
And,
that's a huge thing.
Yeah, it really is a huge thing. So for me, I think it's happened over time. So no, I didn't start out.
But there wasn't just like, you know, this one moment that said, all right, you got to start becoming a lot more transparent. Like, what was that aha moment for you,
you know,
to have you to make that shift?
Yeah, I don't think I had like an aha moment relative to that. But I think what has happened over time, you know, is a lot of people would say like, oh man, you know, you have it all together, or, you know, you're Mr. Perfect, or these things. And that feedback, you know, I was like, well, wait a minute, that's not actually true. You know, so I said, okay, well, what am I doing that's projecting that? And I'm like, okay, maybe I just need to continue to work on walking in all of the truth, just so that who I really am is projected, right? Because I'm not perfect. I don't have it all together. You know, I work on these things all day, every day. And I just, as I got that kind of feedback, I was like, oh, okay, you know, all right, well, maybe I'm not, maybe I need to live more in truth, so that there isn't such a distance between the person and the persona for me.
You know, it's funny that you said that, like, there was not that one moment for you. For me, I feel like that moment came in my relationships.
Oh, really?
Where I would been confronted by her, and she would say something, and then I was like,
oh,
and then you kind of just caught up. You're like,
right, you got me.
I got to think. And so but still, even when I had to like admit that and go back and begin to become more open, I felt so strange.
Oh, really?
Well, yeah, just a little bit, because I'm like
naked.
Just naked. I'm like, oh man, I'm really out there right now with my feelings. And it's so funny that you said that, you know, little by little, because I found out that the more I did that, the more I was rewarded within a relationship. I felt that she felt closer to me, but it's so hard to get to that point sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, it is.
And the house had to be on fire for,
no,
I
it
guess,
is,
for me
man.
to get to that point.
Yeah, it's hard.
How do we get there before the house is on fire?
It's a process, you know, and I think always we're challenged with it. I don't think that it's something that ever comes easy, because I think when we're children, it's easy. Yeah. Because we don't know any other way. Okay. But as we get older, you know, we become more self-conscious. People, you know, we become more judged. So we end up putting this defense system up, so that we can protect ourselves, right? So we go into survival mode. So the more honest we are as we get older, people can't accept it, they don't like it, they get mad at us, they make fun of us, so on and so forth, whatever it may be. Yeah. So we get conditioned to build up these walls. So even into adulthood, we're still working down every day, breaking down these walls, you know, and working on it. So it's a practice. It's a practice. You know, it's like, you know, you didn't become, you know, a master chef overnight. You know, it's a practice. Still going. And so I think that it's the same thing, that truth is a practice to being able to be honest, and also like what we're feeling to communicate.
And it's the truth about the way that you're feeling, or the truth about
You know, truth is relative.
Okay.
So I think anything that we know is important to our partner, especially in a relationship sense, that we're not communicating would be truth.
This analogy about mastering the dog, which I thought was really interesting, because on one hand we're trying to get men to like confront these issues, right?
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, we're actually saying that, you know, men are kind of like dogs. Is that what we're doing?
No,
Okay.
you know, I mean, in the introduction, you know, I think because this old adage has persisted,
Yeah.
you know, it was important to take it and say, okay, this idea, are men really dogs? It comes up consistently.
Are men dogs?
No, I answered that in the
Okay.
introduction. I say, no, of course not. And so I wanted to take that question, to answer the question, but then also turn it on its head. Well, we aren't, but why does it keep coming up? And so when I really began to look at myself, I was like,
A lot of reasons.
you know, like, a lot of things we keep doing. I said, okay, got it. Here's our struggle between love and lust. You know, love is selfless. Love is sacrificial. And we as men, we don't love as well as we could because we weren't taught to love ourselves. And as a result, it's hard to love anyone else and receive love. This is really what the message is about. How do we get to a place of love? How do we get to a place where we're leading with love, leading with sacrifice, leading with selflessness? And then what stands in the way of that? Lust. You know, selfish impulse for personal, professional, financial, or sexual fulfillment by any means necessary, even if those means are detrimental. That's what lust is. It can take many different forms.
Right.
So I use the analogy I call lust the dog, I call love the master, to help articulate the problem, but also
Love the master?
love is called the master. So when we master the dog, we're putting love over lust. That analogy began to make sense. I was like, oh, got it. This all makes sense because as men, when we live in lust, when we let our impulses and our urges run our life, we begin to mirror that of an untrained dog. What does that mean? An untrained dog wants pleasure for pleasure's sake, has no discipline, no self-control, destructive, not accountable, not responsible for its behavior, and it only wants to be fed and it only wants to play. So when we as men give ourselves over to lust, we begin to mirror and model some of those attributes. So I wanted to use the analogy to say, here's how we get control of this.
Okay.
Here's how we master this. Because everyone has it. Every man has it. You know, we have this lust, we have these thoughts, we have these feelings. How do we get control so that they don't control us? So that's where it came,
That
and
makes
that's
a lot
why,
of sense.
you know, I wanted to use it as a way to, you know, engage the reader, but then also point them to a solution. Because so
Yeah.
often we focus on the problem.
Yeah, but you're giving women so much ammo though in the book, just to kind of come at
Got to, man.
Yeah.
You got to.
I mean,
That's
how
the
do you
problem.
feel about that?
I love it. That's why we did it.
Because I
you
can
gotta
imagine the
do it.
argument right now. Well, actually, Kevin, like this is your dog coming out. Like, oh my God, put the Hans book down.
Because you right. Ah,
This is just a dog.
you
that
know,
page
that's right.
216
That's
says.
right. That's
Like,
right.
oh
That's
my
right. But you know what? It's time. It's time for us as men to tell the truth. You know, what's done in the dark will come to light. It's time for us to stop having these secrets. It's time for us to bring women into the fold.
Yeah.
Because what happens in the shadows, that's where lust gets the best of us. When we are not honest, when we operate, you know, in suppression or we operate in manipulation, that's when we do the most harm to most people we love. And so I wanted to give women information also, not just as it relates to women in a relationship, but also there are some men that are not going to choose to do their work. There are some men that are going to be resistant to change. So they say, you know what, this is the way I am. I'm not going to worry about love. This is who I am, right? So if you don't want me or you don't want to accept this is what I'm doing. What I wanted, because so many women they've already written this off. They've already written men off. Oh, it's hopeless. And my answer to this book, well, it's not hopeless. It's not. I said, however, if you're dealing with a man who doesn't want to do his work, here's information for you that can help you become empowered, not only informed, but when you have more information, it can actually help you navigate your dealings better. So it really is twofold, so that we as men have a path to do the work, but also if we choose not to, women aren't just hopeless and helpless with just dealing with us however we choose to be.
Perfect. I love that. I thought this would be kind of fun. I actually went into social media and I
Oh,
asked
cool.
people to ask you
Oh,
some
dope,
questions.
you did? Okay, great.
We got a lot of questions. I want to first ask a question though. Can we do like a little bit of hybrid? Because you give great advice and tips, all right? So
Okay.
I want you to also speak about some of the pop culture stuff that's going on.
Yeah, we're
All right,
rock and
cool.
roll.
All right, so which one do you want first? Do you want a social media question or a pop culture question?
Let's do social media first.
Okay. How do you know when you're in the right relationship? That was the most popular. I got this so many times.
It comes down to one word: peace.
Peace.
Yes. How is your peace? Because our peace is a barometer. Our peace is like our spiritual GPS system. It tells us where to go. It tells us when to stop. And so often when we're in a relationship, sometimes we want that relationship so much that we turn off our ability to hear how we really feel.
Yeah.
So we know how do you feel? Peace is like, can I be my full self? Am I afraid of saying certain things? Am I afraid of doing certain things?
Okay.
Do I do one thing with this person, but with my girls or my guys, I'm something different? How much peace do I have? That's how you can tell. The right relationship will enhance your peace, not diminish it. And that's how you can identify if you're in the right thing.
That is such sage advice, not just for wifey stuff, but just for business as well.
Totally.
Oftentimes, man, it's like, me working with you on this little food project, I don't feel good.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that way. We're just talking about sprinkling like something like cilantro on food. It should be easy. It should be fun. So what you're saying, the whole thing about peace is so good. How do you differentiate, having peace versus this is a momentary conflict that we're having that we've got to go through in order to strengthen that relationship? How do you define those two?
Yeah. Okay. So it's like
between the two.
like when you go back, look at the Bible. It's like, peace in the midst of the storm.
Yeah.
The peace doesn't keep you from the storm, but the idea that you're still able to preserve your peace even when you're in the storm. So like when you're with the right person, you're going to go through challenges. You're going to hit waves. But you're like, yeah, I'm hitting the waves with the person that I know I'm supposed to be with. What will happen though is if you're hitting a number of storms and every time you hit the storm, it's a repeated pattern that keeps eating away at your peace and there's really no resolution to it. And you just find yourself like getting hurt and then trying to heal and getting hurt again in the same way. And this person that apparently loves you is not concerned about your well-being and not willing to make adjustments to help heal. That's when I would argue that this may be a pattern that is actually more destructive than it's constructive. But when you're going through, listen, I've been married 7 years. When you're married, you're going to go through storms. You're going to go through conversations. But this is the person I'm designed to walk through with. And I would say in a relationship sense, time. So often we rush. We rush to meet the person. We rush to, if you're choosing to not wait until marriage, rush to sleep with them, rush to be committed, and you don't even know the person.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you don't actually know if this person is right for you until you go through something. Because that tells you a lot about the person.
It really does.
It tells you. It's like, oh man, this person can't handle any conflict.
Can you stand the rain?
There you go. New edition. Exactly. So even if you're going through things, that isn't always a sign that it's not the right person. I think you have to evaluate what those things are and still be in touch with how you're feeling as you're going through.
That's such sage advice. I like that a lot. Yeah. How do you deal with the woman with an attitude? And I got this from about 3 other guys. Oftentimes, maybe we can act like a dog based off of something else that someone is doing or way that we are perceiving something. So if you feel disrespected, if you feel that maybe something, that you're always constantly having to fight, does the dog emerge in a sense?
Well, I wouldn't say that it's so much the dog emerging. I think that, the master in you, you can still be a master and practice love and still be annoyed. You know what I mean? You can still, say, hey, I'm not allowing lust to ruin my life, but still not feel respected. So one of the things I put in the book, which I address to women, but I also make sure that this applies to men, is tone. It's so when you're dealing with a woman who has an attitude, and let's say, you both know that you love one another, you gotta sit down and have an honest conversation about tone.
Okay, but that's really hard to do if she already has an attitude.
Great, so here's what you do.
Okay.
You write it down.
Okay.
You write it down. So either you literally write it down and have her read it.
Can you give me the right words? No, I'm serious. I'm being. I want you to actually say something.
Honestly, this is how you frame it. I care about you. I think we have a huge future. But one of the things that is disrupting my feeling and my comfort, and I think it's holding us back, again, I'm not going to judge you, but when we have conversations, it feels like your attitude, and I'm not pointing the finger, it feels like your attitude, and I want to talk about this in a non-judgmental way, in a way that we can just talk, because I want to be with you, I think you're the right fit for me, but this is one of the areas that's holding me back, and I don't know how to talk to you about it. and I'm searching for the best way to do it.
There's a little bit of humility that
Completely,
you have to have.
completely, because what you're doing is you're saying, I'm not trying to point the finger. I'm not judging you. I care about you.
But your attitude is really bad. No, I'm kidding.
but you're still, it's tone, it's packaging it, because also when you have something constructive to say, constructive criticism, you have to be mindful, especially when it comes from a man to a woman, that it's a lot of insecurity there, potentially.
Yeah.
You know, and so when people sometimes feel insecure, they get defensive. Sometimes it's just a security measure. I feel insecure, I don't feel safe, so what do? I have to defend myself. So in the proper letter or text or something in advance, like, hey babe, I want to talk with you, you know, like in advance, like so that it's not confrontational. What you're doing is you're not putting her on the defensive. You're preparing her for, hey, I'm answering your insecurity. I want to be with you. I think we have a huge future. Like that in and of itself is like, okay, got it. He's not telling me I have an attitude because he's trying to break up with me. Okay. You know, he's trying to highlight my attitude because he really loves me. And what that may do is produce a breakthrough where she feels finally comfortable to say, you know, you're right. Here's why I have an attitude, because of boom, 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 boom. Or I didn't know I had an attitude. Okay, I'll work on that. But it's so much is the tone and the care and the consideration, and mastery requires us as men to sometimes do things we don't even want to do.
That's true.
You know, that's what I just laid out.
That's manhood right there.
That's manhood.
You really have to swallow a lot.
And that's a master move.
Yeah.
You know, where you're like, okay, I'm going to work on communicating effectively with her so that she feels safe, so that she feels the love. But at the same time, if I don't bring this to her, this is not going to work.
Maybe it's not just an attitude. Mm-hmm. Maybe there is a respect thing there. Mm-hmm. So how do you unpack that as well? Because oftentimes, I've been in a relationship like this before, where it just kind of came down to that. There was nothing wrong that I was doing, and I was eating a whole lot. Mm-hmm. I was saying, okay, let me try this, let me try that. I mean, I was like, literally, I was
humble pie every day.
Because you don't want that when wifey's just not happy,
Mm-hmm.
and it affects everything. I guess I had to realize that maybe
not the right fit.
Yeah, maybe it's not. Mm-hmm. What about that guy? Mm-hmm. How do you get there?
Yeah. You know, I think it's really, really important to be honest with how you feel. Yeah. And also, you know, we're all, even in a dating sense, even when you practice mastery, you're still looking for the right fit. Yeah. And there are certain times you go through things like this where you do the best you can, you're honest, you're open, you're transparent, you try to work through the issues, and for whatever reason, it just is like oil and water. But also I think it's really important for a man to, underneath the desire to be respected, understand what that actually means. You know, because, you know, okay, so just because we're a man, that means that she's supposed to respect us. What does that mean? You know, like, and what does that mean for me? When I say I want to be respected, what does that mean? I want to say something and just you accept it? Does that mean that I want my way to be the way? Yeah. Like, what does respect mean? So I think before we can actually get someone to respect us, we have to understand what that definition is. And for a man,
define it for her too.
We do, because I think this is where relationships miss it. Yeah. We have these unspoken expectations and understandings.
That's so funny you said that, because oftentimes we always blame women for that.
Totally, but it's the truth. We have it too, because when we say respect, we may not even know what that means. Right. So
I didn't know that it was respect until I actually didn't have it.
There you go. It's like, well, wait a minute, I don't feel respected. Oh, wait. But what does that mean for us?
Yeah.
And also, you know, when women hear the word respect as it relates to a man, they may think of something totally different.
Yeah.
So I know it sounds crazy, but we can't take for granted these things. We have to actually take the time to say, okay, for example, when you did this last night, here's why that made me feel disrespected. Right? So you're communicating. But even before you do that, as a man, it's really important. This area of respect is important, but it's also touchy, because it cuts to some of the same things that we as men need to overcome. Yeah. Just because we're men doesn't make us always right. Just because we're men doesn't make us always in control. Just because we're men doesn't mean that we always have to dominate. So when this area of respect comes up, sometimes some men mean that as code for my way or the highway. So it's really important to identify, what does that mean? It's important, like as a man, yes, I want to feel respected. There's no doubt about it. But respect to me is not about, oh, I want to do this, you don't respect me.
Right.
That's just having a difference of opinion. That's not disrespect.
Ooh, this is good. Ooh. All right. Let's do pop culture.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
Let's do it.
All right. So let's pretend that your best friend is Tristan. What advice?
Oh, wow.
Okay.
Tristan Thompson?
Tristan Thompson.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Tristan Thompson.
Yes.
What advice do you give Tristan right now? at this moment?
I literally say, read this book, get the Audible, get the Kindle, okay? Right now. Like, literally. Matter of fact, I'm going to hire somebody that's going to read the book to you while you're in practice, while you're in the car, when you're at home. This book, that's what I would say. I would say, Tristan, my brother, you have got to master the dog, man. You've got to read the truth about me. Period.
Okay.
Period.
Fair.
I mean, oh man, this book could probably save his life right now.
Definitely. And I ain't gonna say that divorce, but all right. So, bigger question though. What about Chloe?
I would have Chloe read the book too.
Really?
Because I have so much information there for women, you know, and being able to decipher who you're dealing with. Are you dealing with a man who's leading with the master? Or are you dealing with a man who's leading with the dog? And also, you know, you can be loved and respected at the same time. And it's so important to know that. And when you have that information, to not be afraid to use that information. So I would love to gift this book to Chloe and Tristan.
Yeah, you know what? It kind of reminds me of another question that someone sent in about their husband not respecting them and not knowing if you should break up with him because he's been not loyal.
Well, you know, and I have a whole, you know, chapter in this book
Yeah.
called Repairing the Damage. You know, what do you do when you messed up in a relationship, or what do you do when you messed up in a marriage? And it fundamentally comes down to, are both people willing to work through it?
Right.
Are both people willing to put in the work? And let's say it's a husband who's cheating on a wife. One, is that wife willing to work with him, work through that? And is he willing to do his work? The thing that's so important about doing the work for a man who has cheated.
Yeah.
So often as men, when a man cheats, his primary goal is to get his woman back. However, if he only focuses as his work is getting the woman back, he never addresses the problem that led to the cheating to begin with.
Yeah.
So a man doing his work in a cheating sense isn't just what I'm doing to repair the trust. It's also what am I doing internally to figure out why I did it and what can I do to avoid doing it again. So it's work internally and externally. And when a man has stepped out in a relationship or a marriage, he does not get to dictate the terms by which trust is regained. When a man steps out, now he has outsourced his ability to dictate those terms to the person which he has hurt.
Always?
Always. Because she is the one that's paying the bill of pain
Okay.
for what he chose to do.
So let's fast forward then. They were able to work through it
Yes.
months later. And so they're back together stronger.
Yeah.
Can she still bring it up?
Again, when I have offended somebody, right, and I know that I'm in the wrong, I have to be sensitive to the fact that even with healing, there still can be trauma. So yes, if she brings it up, you know, doesn't mean that it may not upset the man or annoy him, but okay, baby, all right, you know what? I'm the one that stepped out. So if there's still some residual pain, let's walk through it. When we as men, if a man steps out on a woman and he truly humbles himself, especially his wife, right? Which is a different threshold to me sometimes than being in a relationship. You know, it's a different threshold because you know marriage is an eternal commitment. When you are a husband and you stepped out on your wife, I think you have to commit to that process and know that it may take years. However, the good news is from the research that I did, that I put in the book, you can do it.
Yeah.
You can recover. You can come back stronger if both people are willing to do their work. And in a relationship sense, you can certainly, you know, fix it. But whether or not it's going to be fixable long term will just come down to, you know, the compatibility of both parties.
Yeah, it almost takes it's almost like you have to walk through it just to see if it's going to work.
Yeah, totally. And also,
You may go through it and be like, oh, I just don't think it's going to work now.
it's very possible. It is very, very possible. And a man who steps out in a relationship sense, you know, if you aren't sure that person is your wife, you got to really say, well, you know, did I step out because I actually am not here? You know, I really wasn't here emotionally to begin with.
Yeah. All right, so a couple quick questions, just really fast. What do you think about gender roles when it comes to cooking and in the house?
Man, listen, I've learned about this. There are none. You
Okay.
both have to work it out, right? It does not say in the Bible, she shall cook, and he shall eat. Okay? So gender roles have to be sorted out to make the relationship work.
Okay, here's a really good one. This is from a female. She says, "What key things can guys do to provide a healthy leadership for Bae?" That's like the book.
That's right. You know, I mean, listen, it all starts with love. That's what mastery is all about. You know, living selflessly, living sacrificially, considering her needs above your needs. That's what leadership looks like. And when we model that as men, it sets the standard for everyone in our circle.
This one is a really good one. I want to ask you. So Ash is in this relationship with this guy for about 2 years, and he is off and on cold. Does he care? But I want you to give Ash the advice that you gave me about like what to actually say to a man that is seemingly cold.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's important, one, to be clear and articulate what cold is.
Yeah.
So that he can fully understand. And again, it's the same type of thing. Whenever we're bringing something up to somebody, we have to, you know, basically deprogram their defenses. So that may be writing it down. Babe, we've been together for 2 years. I love you. I care about you. But sometimes I feel you're hot and cold. Here's what I mean by that. When you're cold, here's what it looks like. And most importantly, when you do these things, here's how it makes me feel. I know you care about me. And so I know that your intention is not to make me feel this way. Can we talk about what we can do? Or is there something else going on that makes you vacillate between being hot and cold? When you do that, he will feel like, okay, all right, let me talk about this. Or
But you
I didn't
give
know
him
that.
space though too, right?
Yeah, well, I think you have to give him space, but he has to request the space. You see what I mean?
That's true.
So if you're in a situation, a relationship for 2 years, the guy is hot and cold, you come to him and say, here's how I want to resolve this, or I want to figure out what's going on. Am I misperceiving this? Is there something happening? Let's talk about it. He has to be the one to say, you know, I need space here. You know, or, okay, baby, here's what's going on. Or, you know what, you're wrong. I'm not hot and cold. Maybe, whatever the resolution is, it's important to deliver the concern in a non-judgmental, non-threatening way, and understand in a relationship, because these things are so difficult, you may do all that, he still may have a negative reaction. That's not your responsibility. When you have brought to your partner your concern in a loving, considerate, kind manner, and then they still have a reaction, that's okay, let them react. But still stand firm on how you feel. Because sometimes when people get defensive, what do? They want to sometimes have a loud response to make you feel bad about bringing it up to begin with.
Right. To try to intimidate you.
There you go. Hold your ground. I know that may upset you. Take some time. Relax. You know, calm down. But when you calm down, I still want to talk about this because I think it's vital to our health and our future.
What's the perfect recipe for a healthy relationship?
I think the perfect recipe for a healthy relationship, you know, it starts with love, trust, communication, and truth. Because I think those are the foundations. You know, if we truly love one another, if we truly are connected, if we truly trust one another, I mean, trust is everything.
Yeah.
And it's an essential ingredient, because you could love somebody you don't trust. It's going to make for a very dysfunctional relationship.
Yes, it is. I've been there.
I mean, dude, it'll drive you crazy.
Yeah.
You know, you love this
Always
person, but
thinking.
you don't trust them.
Where you going?
Where you going? What you doing? You
Who
said you were
called
here.
you?
Who called you? You know, I saw what you posted here. That, you know, it drives you crazy.
Especially social media.
Yeah, especially social media. So truth isn't just necessarily what you say, it's who you are. You know, can we live our truth with the person we're with? Can we be who we are? Or do we have to present a version of who we are just to be accepted or to keep the peace? Communication, you know, how well do we talk about what's going on? How well, you know, do we express our feelings? And it doesn't even have to be bad feelings, just like, you know, how well can we express what's going on, what we're thinking? And the last thing I would say is going back to peace. You know, you gotta have peace. You gotta feel settled. Like, yeah, even though we go through challenges, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I think if you have those 5 things, I think you would have a successful relationship. Yeah.
There's this book I read a long time ago. It's called Vital Friends.
Oh, cool.
And it depicts like the 5 people that you should have in your life. But it was talking about that sometimes we get into trouble because we try to make our partners fit all 5 of those. And so they talk about the fact that it's really important to maintain meaningful relationships outside of your marriage because they can fill some of those vital roles that you need in your life.
Yeah, I agree with that. Your spouse is not your everything. It's really important to know that.
Yeah.
Don't put that expectation on anybody.
That's hard.
It is, because then you want the person you're with to be everything to you or I, and it's just not realistic.
You're right.
No matter how much I love my wife and she loves me, I can't be her everything.
Yeah.
God has got to be her everything.
Yeah.
And I'm a part of it, but she also has her mother, her sister. Like, I find that the healthiest marriages, and when my spouse is the happiest, is when it's a combination of her, like she has, her life is filled with a community of people that fulfill different needs. And I play a vital, important role that is prioritized, but I can't be what her mother is. I can't be what her sister is. I can't be what her best friend is, and nor should I try. I think the strength is when, we're secure in our love, where we allow our partner, the person that we're with, to have that community around them. Where they don't, because sometimes in certain relationships, some people say, oh, well, no, you can't talk to that person, and you can't do this, and I don't want you spending time there, because they feel threatened, they feel insecure.
So back on that trust issue over here.
Go back to trust. But the one thing that I would say relative to that, and I talk about this in the book, while it's important to have that community, it's really important to be careful what you communicate. Because a safe space in a marriage and a relationship is one of the safest spaces when you're able to talk to your partner about what's going on. However, if you are in a relationship or a marriage and you're talking to your single friends or a person of the opposite sex outside of your relationship, I would argue that's an unsafe space.
Okay.
Because you're confiding things to someone of the opposite sex that you should be confiding to the person that you're with. And we have to be mindful of that.
So it's just the same sex then?
Say it again.
So
same sex is cool.
Okay.
Same sex is cool, but I would also be mindful of anybody, especially married, getting advice from anybody single. If you're single, you don't know what marriage is.
Okay.
No idea.
But from a married person.
Yes. If I'm married, I should not be talking to a woman outside my relationship and telling her things that I'm not telling my wife.
Okay.
That is an unsafe space.
Okay.
Even if she's a close friend. Even if this is like, I knew her before I knew my wife. If I'm telling her things about my relationship that I'm not telling my wife, it becomes a liability. Because what happens is I find myself being drawn to these conversations, or my wife talking to another guy, outside of talking to him about what's going on with us. Those are unsafe spaces that I talk about in the book. So that it's very important to protect, but still have a community of people that allow us to be who we are. Because you're right, I love that book, that no one can be everything, and we do need different people to play different roles.
But there just can't be the same sex though when you're talking it
within
a relationship.
You can have people, friends of the opposite sex. If I talk to Megan's sister, say, hey, that's a safe space, right? Because she's married, I'm married, and I'm talking about her sister. I need to know, how should I handle X, Y, and Z? That's different. And if I'm talking to a best friend of mine who has no relationship with Megan, and I'm telling her all this stuff.
That makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
So if it's someone perhaps that's just connected to the wife, to y'all, maybe that one would be okay because they would have that insight.
Yeah, but
if it's one of your friends, they know, okay.
Yeah, I'm over here talking, but it happens, man. You may even it happens where you could even be talking to a coworker or somebody that you spend a lot of time with. Dude, this is why relationships and marriages are failing.
Yeah.
Because this happens way more common than people care to admit.
Yeah. It is really easy just to kind of get caught up in a conversation. It's very satisfying almost too, especially if you're stressed out or mad at bae. And you do want to get some advice, but then also you're like, isn't she awful?
You want to get someone to co-sign.
She kind of
and that's a slippery slope.
Yeah, that's really good advice.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, man, for breaking bread with me. Much continued success to you on this book tour. I just know that you're going to just do some great things. You opened up my eyes a lot. I've been working myself on just becoming much more open and vulnerable with the relationship. So seeing people like you do it so well.
Oh wow, thank you.
It helps me out a lot because I use like your little quotes and nuggets to go back in relationships. Like, well, technically, I'm feeling this way. I'm like, Kevin, you sound great. I know, and it's all me. I don't mean to it's all me.
It's all good.
It's all me. It's insights. You know, I just been doing this. I'm mastering this thing.
That's right. That's right,
So
man.
appreciate
Hey,
you,
man,
bro.
take it, man, and run with it, bro.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate you, dog.